The Sandbox video podcast is brought to you by smartShift, the global leader in intelligent automation for SAP transformations.
Hello, and welcome to the Sandbox video podcast, Fireside Chat Edition. I'm your host, Joyce Kulhawick, and today we're going to discuss the cost savings and business benefits of automated code transformation. We'll introduce a recently published study by Forrester Consulting and highlight some of the salient points with the company that commissioned it, smartShift. With that, I'm pleased to introduce my guests today. We have Nick Mayberry, TEI Consultant from Forrester. Hello, Nick. Welcome to the program. And Nick, where do we find you today?
Hey Joyce, I'm actually coming to you directly from my home office in San Francisco. Little overcast today, but there's no fires, there's no earthquakes, so I can't complain.
Good. Thank you. Also, we have Arndt Hoffmann, Chief Customer Officer from smartShift. Hello, Arndt. Where are you located today?
Hi, Joyce. I'm actually in the nice city of Wiesbaden in Germany. And actually also no earthquakes or anything like that here, but it has been raining all day.
Well, I am in a studio right outside Boston, so this is truly a global conversation. We are having thunderstorms with hail and a tornado watch, so it's going to be a very dramatic conversation. So let's get right to it. Nick, I'm going to start with you. Set the stage for us. Tell us about the Total Economic Impact Report. What is it? Who is it for? And what is it designed to do?
Yeah, happily. So the Total Economic Impact Report is a product of Forrester's consulting group. Importantly, it is not affiliated with Forrester's research and advisory practice. The goal of the TEI study, as we lovingly call it, is to help technology companies quantify the value of the offerings that they bring to market. The TEI also serves to help the customers of these firms, whether current or prospective, understand the potential value of utilizing that specific technology offering. Every TEI examines four main areas: benefits, costs, flexibility, and risk. Benefits can include things like cost savings or improvements to revenue, while common costs are things like licensing fees or costs incurred during the implementation process. Flexibility is a bit different in that it typically is unquantified and aims to capture strategic value, or value that isn't realized until well after the initial investment is made. And then lastly, we incorporate risk to take into account the differences between the various source firms from which we get our data. So these differences can include size of employees, size of revenue, things like that.
So I'm going to switch to Arndt now. On the flip side, why did smartShift hire Forrester to do a total economic impact study? What were you trying to discover and understand?
Well, actually, as smartShift is in the market since many, many years, right? And we helped already a lot of customers to handle their SAP transformation. We also get a lot of positive feedback on what we do, right? They tell us how fast we were, how much we have accelerated certain projects, de-risking projects and stuff like that. But the feedback was mostly qualitative in nature, right? And when you look at the investment decisions of our customers, we also wanted to have hard financial data, which actually proves the point in investing in smartShift. And so we looked out and we found with Forrester Consulting, a prestigious partner here, to help us with that. What we especially liked with the total economic impact reporting is that they really wanted to talk to our customers and take interviews and derive the feedback from that. And we are very happy with the outcome. And if you are interested in seeing the report, you can actually download it for free from our website.
That's interesting. And of course, talking to the customers is very important in addition to the data. It's almost like, the glue that holds the whole thing together. Nick, you were the managing consultant on this project. What were some of the key headlines or takeaways from this TEI?
So the real headline figures of any TEI study are the technology's return on investment, or ROI, and net present value, or NPV. The net present value is essentially the ROI in today's dollar terms. So for smartShift, what we estimated was a 253% return on investment and an NPV of $12.8 million, both of these with a payback period of less than 6 months. It's important to understand that ROI is actually more of a profit figure than a revenue figure, so to speak. This means that 0% ROI means that the return on investment equaled the cost of the investment. It doesn't mean that $0 were returned. So anything above 0% means that you're getting money after your full payback of your investment. Lastly, the audience should really know that the ROI for smartShift was delivered in 4 key ways. The first was avoiding costs of manual SAP code transformation, valued at $9.3 million over 3 years. The second was reducing the cost of unused custom code upgrading, maintenance, and testing, worth $3.8 million over 3 years. The third was avoiding the risk of any business interruption during the conversion to SAP S/4HANA, valued at $3.6 million over 3 years. And the fourth was reducing the costs of dual maintenance during this conversion, worth $1.1 million over 3 years.
Wow, Arndt, as the Chief Customer Officer for smartShift, this has to be exciting news for you. What was your reaction as you were reading the TEI study? Did the study reveal what you hoped it would? Give us a couple examples.
Well, actually, we were really thrilled when we first saw the results, and we at smartShift think the results strongly affirm the value we actually deliver to our customers. I think the numbers and the key financial data Nick just stated speak for its own, right? The ROI and especially also the short payoff period. On the value and benefits we deliver, some are, I think, also very obvious for our customers, right? That we reduce the cost of the actual code remediation massively with our solutions. Others might be not that obvious in the first place, and we often see that in our discussions, right? So, for example, that we reduce the cost of dual maintenance, which you need to do during your transformation projects, or that you also minimize the business disruption because of utilizing intelligent automation from smartShift. So, overall, it definitely made us very happy to see these results, and it also gives some nice perspectives for our customers to think about when they invest into smartShift.
Well, there are very recognizable companies in this study. Who were they? And please give us some examples of the kind of work that smartShift did for them. What sorts of companies typically need this kind of work?
For the study, we were actually happy to get 4 very prestigious customers to join us and help us with that. First of all, it was Procter & Gamble, whom we are supporting with their supply chain transformation and consolidation project. They actually moved their supply chain SAP systems, consolidate them, move them to S4, and we help them in a multi-year transformation and rollout program. The second one is the car manufacturer BMW here from Germany, which we support since many, many years in a huge transformation program for overall 69 SAP landscapes. And we have done more than 100 projects, S4HANA, HANA, and even EHP upgrades and security projects. Then from the US, we have actually Jabil, the global manufacturer, who actually also needed to move his core ERP system to S4HANA. Wanted to do that in a technical conversion approach to get on the platform pretty fast. Big system, highly customized, a lot of dual maintenance where we helped it. And finally, JBS, the food company here from the US, which took a little different approach to S4, a selective approach, and we also helped them with this S4HANA project and also helping to roll out the system and helping with dual maintenance there as well.
Nick, you interviewed the customers for this study. In the TEI, you captured the key types of challenges described by these organizations. You also captured the benefits they received. So if you would, give us a few examples from those conversations, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite the varying characteristics, right, of the different customers that we spoke with, they did actually share some core challenges that led to their investment in smartShift. The first of these was the expense and length of time that was actually needed to do a manual SAP code transformation. The customer shared with us that the expenses associated with that were so high that without the ability to automate the code transformation with a tool like smartShift, they would basically be at a complete loss as to how they would ever go about a conversion to something like SAP S/4HANA. Another challenge they faced involved human error and security risks. So prior manual code transformations, right, had introduced code errors that led to additional costs associated with remediating those code errors. These same errors then would also open up unacceptable security risks. And then lastly, given that the SAP S/4HANA conversion is kind of a once in a career, right, initiative, the customers felt that they really lacked enough experience internally on how to go about managing such a critical endeavor. And this led them to seek out smartShift because smartShift and firms like it have worked on multiple initiatives like this over the lifetime of the firm. So they, as an organization, have much more organizational knowledge about how to go about it than any singular organization that would be going about it for its first time. Then, as you mentioned, right, the customers, of course, experienced benefits from their investment, which we already discussed briefly in terms of the dollar value that we modeled for those benefits. So I think now might be a good time to actually share with you what customers said about those benefits really in their own words. So for example, right, when it came to reducing the cost of running manual transformations, the customer from BMW Group told us that smartShift saved them tens of thousands of person days of manual work. This is a big benefit alone, but we also tend to use external resources on these projects, which come at a higher cost than internal ones. The customer from Jabil shared with us that a manual transformation would have cost them 10 months of work for 36 internal resources. Similarly, the customer from JBS Foods shared that their manual transformation would have cost them 30 expensive ABAP developers for 9 months. With smartShift, the customer shared that they managed to complete their code transformations in a range of 4 to 8 weeks. And then when it comes to reducing the cost of custom code work streams, such as upgrading, maintenance, and testing, the customer shared that smartShift reduced the unused portion of their custom code, which amounted to about 30% to 50% of the total, and that they saved between 25 cents and $1 per line of decommissioned unused code. Lastly, smartShift saved customers 20% of their estimated dual maintenance costs, which for our composite required 36 full-time employees to manage.
Very interesting. And this is always tricky, but I'm always interested in how one makes quantifiable the intangibles. So how did you take the information from your interviews and translate that info into the quantifiable return on investment? If you can give us some actual examples describing how the anecdotal pairs with the financial model to provide return on investment.
Sure. So this is actually a really great question. The process really is that what we do is obviously we complete all the interviews, we take all the data that we've gathered in those interviews and we lay it out in one place. And what we then do is develop what we call a composite organization. So the composite organization is actually a fictional organization, but it is representative, right, of all the customers that we interviewed. We don't want to create 4 different financial models with 4 different results. We do one that is based on this composite organization representative of the 4 customers. What we'll then do is have to make decisions, right? We'll basically either take an average of the data that the customer shared with us for relevant metrics and apply that to the composite, or we'll have to really scale up or down those metrics to match the composite. It really kind of depends on the type of metric we're really talking about. So, for example, when it comes to the 30 to 50% reduction in unused code, this is something that would be averaged, right? As a percent reduction wouldn't need to be scaled to any different organization size. It would be about the same for any organization, dependent on the amount of data, of course, that you got and the reliability of that data. However, when it comes to things like total lines of code, right, that would be something that would scale to the size of the organization. And so that would scale to match the composite organization rather than just take an average. That's basically how we go about doing the model and taking what we hear from customers and applying it to understand the ROI.
So, Arndt, in terms of the key challenges in the TEI, which ones do you see customers most frequently encountering in the market? Tell us about those. And again, give us some examples. It's always easier to relate to very specific examples.
Well, when it comes to challenges, actually, most of our customers at the moment are challenged with the move to S/4HANA. If you look at latest numbers from DESAC and ESAC, actually 85% of existing ECC systems have not moved to S4. And as I said earlier, these systems are highly customized. Our benchmark also says they are about 20,000 custom objects in these systems, 3.7 million lines of code, and 40 to 60% of them are not used. And moving and adapting this code for S/4HANA is a super tedious process. And for example, JBS, they mentioned they estimated 30,000 man hours of manual labor to actually do this work, right? That is 3,750 man days at the end to complete the work. So this is a real challenge. And the more you accelerate this path there for code remediation, the more you de-risk also your project. The more problems you introduce in this process, the more problems you have in your overall process, right? Then the other aspect Nick mentioned as well is the risk associated with manual code remediation, mostly driven from big offshore or nearshore factories, right? If you look at MIT studies, they say manual code changes usually have an error rate of 5 to 15%. We at smartShift, we guarantee our quality, and we have something like 10 issues for 100,000 changes we do in the code, right? And last but not least, a big challenge, Nick also mentioned that, is the whole area of business disruption. These S/4HANA projects are not very popular projects. So because there's a lot of discussions on business case around S4, right? I don't want to go into that, but S4HANA projects are not popular, and they are especially not popular with your business. So you want to keep actually the impact on your business, the problems you introduce through an IT project, you want to keep them minimal. And that is a big challenge for our customers. And that leads me to the last challenge. It's the whole resource topic. These projects are resource heavy if you do them manually, and they bind actually your valuable resources for tasks which an automation can do better, right? And especially with the end of life day 2027 coming closer, resources are getting scarce and scarce, and you better utilize them for some meaningful innovation or functional task in your projects.
So, Arndt, in your experience, when do your customers actually begin to see and experience the benefits from working with smartShift? Is it a welcome surprise at the end of the process? Talk about that.
No, it's actually not only a surprise at the end of the project. They actually realize these benefits along the project with us, right? So a typical transformation project for us, even of huge custom repositories of up to 200,000 custom objects, only takes guaranteed 3 to 5 weeks, right? And this timeline usually is on the critical part of S/4HANA projects. And so you already realize a shorter time frame which is required for your project. Then actually, as I said, we relieve the internal IT staff from these tedious tasks, and they are completely freed up for doing something meaningful, like looking at the new functionality, implementing some new Fiori screens, and stuff like that. Another aspect is the whole aspect of dual maintenance. Dual maintenance means once you set up your S4 system and any changes which go into your old landscape, they have to retrofit it to the S4 system. This is a huge challenge. Mm-hmm. And we also automate that, right? You don't need teams of 10, 20, 30 people to do this work. You can utilize than for something else. And then Nick also mentioned the benefit of reducing the custom code footprint in the system, getting rid of unused code. But also what we do, we also optimize the remaining code, making it more performant and secure. And that also has a mid and long-term benefit for our customers, maintaining these systems the next 5, 10, 15 years.
So, Nick, if you would, talk about the process of quantifying the costs for customers in this TEI. For example, what sorts of things are you looking for? What do you do with it once you've gathered that information?
Yeah, so when we look at costs, we're really looking at two high-level categories. We're looking at hard costs and soft costs. Mm-hmm. So hard costs are everything that costs actual dollars directly. Things like licensing fees, hardware and software costs, professional services, things like that. Almost every single technology investment will have at least one set of hard costs, if not multiple sets. Unless maybe we're in the world of open source or something like that, or maybe we're just analyzing a part of a whole in a broader license. But almost everything will have a hard cost associated with it. And then when we look at soft costs, we look at a number of things that still cost money, but they cost money more in relation to resources and time. So these are things like implementation costs, deployment costs, time cost of training employees, et cetera, et cetera. We always try to ask every customer about every type of cost we look at, because frankly, sometimes even our clients are unaware that maybe their customers are spending time on internal trainings or change management or things like that. Once we've gathered that information, we do the same exact thing that we do with the benefit metrics. We determine whether to average or scale the metric based on the type of metric it is, and how to most accurately apply it to the composite organization that we're modeling. Often when it comes to direct fees, we'll actually ask the clients to price the composite directly. That way we get the most accurate price in our TEI model. Clients are actually disincentivized, right, from playing any pricing games when we're doing this, because the whole point of these TEIs is to get prospective customers in the door, and they certainly won't be held too happy if they discover that there's some massive price difference, right, when they get to the end of the discussion with the client compared to the TEI study.
What about risk? How does Forrester go about consolidating and quantifying risk? Where does it show up in the study? And give us an example.
Yeah, another great question. Risk is something that we bring into our modeling, and that's really the core place that you'll see it show up. There isn't a section in the study that's all about risk or anything like that. Anytime we discuss the model, we will discuss some risk. So our modeling remains conservative. We try and always take a conservative approach to our modeling. So we use risk to reduce benefit values and increase cost values by a certain percentage, a different percentage, in fact, for each benefit and for each cost. So the amount of risk that we introduce varies benefit by benefit and cost by cost, and really is a function of two main things. One is the variance in customer experience is shared with us. So is there a wide range of experience that we heard from customers in terms of benefiting from a particular benefit that can't really be associated with the size of the customer or any other, factor that's associated with the customer themselves? And then second, what's really the reliability of the data that we gathered? Did all 4 customers share that they experienced the exact same benefit? Or was it only really one customer that said that they experienced that benefit? And therefore, does it warrant a higher risk if we choose to model it? Similar with costs, right? We do the exact same thing, right? We'll figure out, what's the variance or, what's the reliability of the data that we gathered. But importantly, again, we apply risk to increase the cost rather than decrease it as we do with the benefits.
So there is risk, obviously, on both sides of this equation, Art. So how does risk show up for smartShift customers when they are considering a code remediation solution for a digital transformation? And again, give us a couple of examples.
Well, I think customers discuss risk in multiple dimensions, right? The first thing what we need to understand is these digital transformation projects or S/4HANA projects are really business and mission critical for our customers, especially when you look at the obsolescence of S/4HANA with 2027, that is considered as a business risk, right? And as I said earlier, custom code and custom code adoption sits on the critical path of all these projects. And so mitigating this risk by utilizing intelligent automation from smartShift with guaranteed outcomes and guaranteed timelines is definitely a smart way of doing it, right? The second area of risk is definitely what we discussed earlier, this quality aspect. I don't want to go again into the quality of manual labor and issues introduced, but also one imminent part of manual code remediation is that you limit it and only address the tip of the iceberg of the problems which you have in your code, right? I give you an example. There is certain statements in the code which can be pretty risky from a performance perspective and can bring your system completely down. There was a case for a manufacturer of automobiles who actually didn't address these issues in the code, and one single piece of code actually brought down the manufacturing of one plant for a couple of hours, which actually had the problem that at the end, a couple of cars were not produced, and the damage was multi-million, right? And that is certain actually stuff which you don't address with manual labor. You have no chance to do that. But we at smartShift, we actually not only limit the remediation to the tip of the iceberg, but we solve the complete problem in ways of performance, security, stability, resilience of code, and things like that.
Nick, talk about the payback period in the TEI. What do you think about how that is presented? And just give us your interpretation of this using the TEI numbers.
Yeah, so payback's actually a really interesting topic, and frankly, I don't think it really gets enough attention from clients and customers alike. Payback is essentially the time it takes until all the costs of the investment have been covered by the technology's benefits. Or when does the ROI reach 0%, the crossover point between, any kind of payback from the investment and the profit you get from that investment. So for TEIs, Forrester actually limits itself to displaying less than 6 months as the lowest payback period. We never go below 6 months, or we never detail when it's below 6 months. Whether the payback period was 2 days or 5 months and 20 days, we'll always show it as less than 6 months. And the payback period may, of course, exceed this, but for this TEI, we found that the composite organization was made whole in terms of its smartShift investment in less than 6 months, the lowest payback period we ever show.
Wow. So also in the TEI study, there's a section about unquantified benefits. So can you tell us what exactly that means and why is that in the study?
Yeah, so every TEI study actually includes not just quantified benefits, but also unquantified benefits. Benefits can be unquantified for a couple of reasons. Typically, either the customers know they received this benefit, but none of them could adequately quantify the benefit, or the nature of the benefit itself makes it nearly impossible to quantify reliably. So an example of the first type of unquantified benefit in this study would be the accelerated time to value of the SAP S/4HANA conversion. So by shortening the time of the conversion via automated code transformation, smartShift enabled the customers to convert to SAP S/4HANA much faster than otherwise. As we noted before, right? Somewhere around 9 to 10 months manually, down to 6 weeks or so under an automated transformation. So this means that those firms got about 7.5 to 8.5 months of benefit from SAP S/4HANA that they would not have gotten otherwise. That being said, what are all those different benefits, right, that those customers would have gotten from SAP S/4HANA during that time frame? The customers just couldn't reliably quantify each and every one of those. So we had to keep this benefit, unfortunately, an unquantified benefit. An example of the second kind of unquantified benefit, where it's really the nature of the benefit that makes it remain unquantified, is peace of mind and project predictability. So how does one ascribe, right, a dollar value to the peace of mind that employees, that an organization overall gets from being able to kind of ensure that their project will be done along the right timeline in a defensible way? I don't really have an answer to that, but if someone out there does, shoot me an email, get in touch. I'd love to know. But anyway, right, customers were able to tell us that smartShift gave them peace of mind by ensuring that no code errors negatively impacted the project timeline, and that executives that made this decision looked good internally because they kept to an accurate prediction of the timeline that they set, months, maybe a year in advance.
It's a very nuanced report, very interesting thinking around the quantifiables and the unquantifiables, but it's important to be thinking about all of that. There must be at least a dozen customer quotes in the smartShift TEI. Tell me, was there any one in particular that stood out to you? And if so, which one and why?
Do I really have to pick one? I love them all, actually. Well, maybe let's talk a little bit about the quote from Bruno Pont from Procter & Gamble. Actually, Bruno is the global program manager for the supply chain system transformation and consolidation program. This system is crucial to their business. One day of outage has a multi-billion-dollar impact, right? And he actually stated, I have to read it here, we have not stopped a single project thanks to smartShift during our first year of transition. All the business transformation that is needed to keep the business running continued as if the transition to S/4HANA was not happening. So I think that is a pretty important statement here. And if you imagine what this system is doing and keeping the business alive, not impacting by this project, is a huge benefit. And another thing what actually Bruno said, smartShift took away the focus from the custom code work stream completely from P&G. Once they have seen what we did on the Sandbox system, they fully trusted our outcome, and they could move on to other issues and problems in the overall program they had to solve. And therefore I love this quote, but I also love all the others.
That's a great way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Arndt and Nick, for your time, for all the information. I learned a lot, and some very vivid examples for our audience. Thank you so much. See you next time on the Sandbox Video Podcast.
The Sandbox Video Podcast was brought to you by smartShift, the global leader in intelligent automation for SAP transformations.